meeting with ESMA. ESMA is a company which creates all the contents and the creativity and the production for the Barcelona Fashion Week, and also for a lot of events here in Spain in fashion. So I met them and we talk about this, and we recreate all the models, showgoers, and all the context of the fashion in the Reales Atarazanas. So the first one is an image of one of the pieces we transformed to a vinyl. Did you say vinyl? Vinyl?
Yeah, vinyl.
For the windows. Vinyl, yes. And this is the first one. So it was amazing. It was my first project. And since this moment, I restore my mind, and I began to be more convinced.
The beauty of if you turn off your video, Montserrat, it's joined.
As a fashion illustrator. So this was at the beginning. 2 images here. The second and the third. What? It's going wrong.
You were cutting out.
Now it's okay.
It's okay. We can hear you. We can hear you. I think we might have lost her. She might come back. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll move on to Jill, and then we'll come back to Montserrat. So hopefully she'll log back in. As I said, technology, we can only do so much. So the next person, it doesn't mean we've forgotten about Montserrat. Please, Montserrat.
Hello?
Can you hear us, Montserrat?
Now?
If you turn your video off and we can just hear your voice.
You can hear me now? No?
Yeah, we can hear you now. No, we can't.
Parar el vídeo. Video.
Turn your, we'll come back.
It's okay right now?
We can hear you now. Can you hear us?
Okay. So the second part, can I continue or?
Yeah.
Later. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So 2 and 3.
We come back later. Okay. The second and the third one is from a project to Massimo Dutti during the lockdown. Also the new collection and the old collection, 2 pieces or 3 pieces from the summer and from the winter and autumn. And I began to create the illustrations, and they gave me the possibility to make a complete collection. So we did the project, and they published it at the website and also in social media during the second month of the lockdown. And the third one, Vogue, this one, Vogue,
yep.
Was my first time in public live painting. It was the second year of my career, and I went to Madrid. I present my work in live painting to the Condé Nast PR, and they asked me if I want to be at the vernissage of Vogue like a painting. So we arrange a corner, we make it real, and during the vernissage with Paolo Roversi, Peter Limber, etc. I was doing live painting and giving all the guests a mini quick illustration, doing as well during the vernissage.
Lovely.
So
thank you, Montserrat. I'm taking the advantage that you've managed to get through it. So thank you. So I'm going to move on to Jill now. Jill's work, I guess, flagged up to me when we had our first awards, and when I spoke to the Acid Gallery as well. Her work has become, she's got two or three little styles that she plays with. And I guess there's some interesting things that I saw when I was going through university with this single line drawing, and it's kind of very playful, but also quite romantic, almost quite sexual as well, and almost is drawing you in with the eyes and sucking you in. And I thought it was quite and these sort of beautiful portraits. So hopefully we can hear you, Jill. I can see you. Beaming over to Jill. So if you want to go through your images and explain why they meant so much to you.
Can you hear me, Patrick?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. So yeah, what you've just said is perfect, because I do try and play with different styles. It's something that I've fought against for a long time, feeling that, you know, it's perhaps a negative thing, particularly if you're speaking to agents, because people want to see this particular style they know they can come to you for, and they have confidence that that's what they're going to get at the end of it. But I do like to play around. So these three images are just all, they have elements of similarity, but they're different as well. So the first one was one that I did, which was for the cover of Estila magazine, which was a bookazine, which is for creatives. It's a fantastic movement which celebrates different creatives from different backgrounds. So could be fashion illustration, any artists, or interior designers, furniture makers, whatever. And it encourages collaborations and communications. So I was really thrilled to be sort of, well, I actually approached Estila and said, look, how do you select artists for your covers? And Carolina, who is the founder, said, wow, yeah, you're a good fit, do something for us. And so that first one was sort of, kind of reminds me of that moment really, which is also, it also sort of encourages me to approach people, because that's something that I'm not brilliant at. I'm quite a bit shy in sort of being confident to approach people. So that was kind of fantastic, because obviously it would be fantastic for every illustrator to get a front cover. It might not be Vogue or, you know, but that was kind of a moment for me that said, wow, you can do it. And everyone was very pleased with the result. And I was quite pleased because it was one of the first collage works I did. It was a D&G collection. And so, yeah, that was that one. The second one is a very recent one, which is a continuation of the kind of single line, continual line things I've been working on. Like you said, it's quite playful, but I like to think it's not playful to the point of being cartoony. And I got a lovely comment from Bella Freud. It's a Bella Freud jumper. And when I posted it on Instagram, she commented, I'd said, jumper envy, two simple words, and her response was ability to draw envy, which I thought was very, well, it was lovely. But you know, kind of another take again. It's kind of nice to be able to reach people like that and be part of a creative community. It makes you realize that something that you have, you can give a lot and be appreciated. And the third image was, I love this one because she's got me everywhere. She got me in the Fida as a shortlisted artist for the first Fida Awards. So I have very fond memories of that. And she also was recently in the Acid Gallery exhibition in Lille in France, which Vicky took part in as well. And she just always, she keeps coming back. She kind of haunts me, but in a good way, because she's sort of elements of everything that I love to do. So there's charcoal line, a little bit of continual, not much, but there's ink, there's watercolor, and it's quite experimental, I would say. But yeah, and you used it for the advertising for this as well. So it's sort of one of those images that just keeps, you know, lives with me.
Yeah, I guess with some of these pieces is sometimes it feels easier and enjoyable, that it feels wrong, and then sometimes it should feel hard, and then it doesn't work. So with being a creative is so almost destructive, because you don't know whether it should be a struggle, almost like Lucian Freud having a battle with his pictures, where and sometimes that happens. You can make 50 images, and then it's just that learning curve that you went through which refines the final one. And that's the bit that a lot of people don't realize. They see it drawn quite quickly and having this sort of fluidity to it, but you had to have a lot of depressed experiences drawing all them horrible pieces that didn't work. And then you're like, oh, it's not working. And then this magic moment happens, and it only happens and then it comes back and people like really appreciate it. But that's, you know, as you said, it's got a little bit of this, a little flavor of that, a bit of the collage. And I guess that's what, as a creative, you're doing, is you're editing and curating this drawing, and it becomes an amalgamation of all your learning, and it's like an encyclopedia in a piece. And I think that's a way that I saw it when I select it, and how I sort of visualize it in my head of really analyzing a drawing, is the journey that I could see people go through when they create a piece. So thank you. I'm still admitting people in, so sorry if clicking around and there's people coming in and out of the room.
Awesome.
So what we've got now is a Q&A. We're going to do like a little round table discussion with everybody. And what I would also like to do, let's just see here. I want to stop sharing. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see everyone's great faces. But I want to put it next to me so I can kind of see as well. Hopefully I'm not sharing anymore. And if anybody's got any questions, what we could do is put it in the chat, and I'm going to try and look at the chat. So I don't know if anyone's put anything in the chat because I can't see anything. So if you want to write something in the chat, like a hello, to test it, and you're all muted at the moment, but what rather than having loads of noise, if you have a question, if you know how to raise your hand, press raise your hand, and I'll click on you, and then you can ask your question. Again, hopefully you don't go mental on here. So one of the first questions that I have here was, why did you become and choose to become a fashion artist in the beginning? So Francesco, so out to you, is why did you choose to become a fashion? Why did you not want to be an artist or in advertising, or I don't know, a musician? What was your reason?
Yeah, so I think for me it was like a little mix in a way. Like fashion came to me in a way. I wasn't into fashion since not long time ago. So for me, it was more, I was attending the fine arts. So I was like kind of dreaming of being mostly an artist, a painter. And I think like I tried that for a while. And I think then after a while, I wasn't really feeling it. And it was a hard process for me, also maybe personally. And then, then I started getting into fashion, and it was mostly through photography. So it was like, there were lots of interest. And yeah, like at some point I felt like through fashion illustration, I could mix almost all my interests. So it felt natural. That's why it's a thorough mix. and I'm quite happy. Like I don't regret it. I feel like I do prefer, let's say, like the commercial side of fashion illustration instead of like this vision of an art like for art's sake, which is quite, I don't know, maybe it's also because of my Italian heritage. Like I see art as something quite big, and yeah, for example, I myself, I don't usually call myself an artist. I usually call myself an illustrator, and I love that. I prefer that. But yeah, maybe this is another subject.
No, but I guess it's an interesting conversation, because, like I say, when I went to the RCA, they asked me, "What are you?" And I said, "I don't know," because an illustrator always seemed to, depending on budgets, I always saw illustrator would be low budget financially, and artist was someone that could request a higher cost, because, you know, we need to survive in our field. And illustrator was someone that, oh, you could bring them in and they could do this, and they're quite fast and they knew how to draw quite quickly. Oh, that could be a low cost. And that was my biggest problem with being called an illustrator. And, you know, even I spoke to Richard Haynes, and he is now referring himself to as a fashion artist, not a fashion illustrator. So you're seeing a lot of people probably moving the word away as illustrator, because you're not a book illustrator, you're not that sort of person, and you're using an artistic practice to inform your drawing. So this is why I guess it's a tough word. Illustrator is a very tough word, which I constantly grapple with. So I know, Montserrat, if you, so you don't disappear, you can turn your screen off while you talk. But I guess a good question for you, Montserrat, is not I don't want to know why you became a fashion illustrator. Is more, I guess my second question was, what has been the hardest part of the process of being an illustrator, fashion artist, illustrator, whatever you want to call yourself?
Wow. The hardest part, I think, is at the beginning, not at the same time that you begin, 2 or 3 years later, when you think everything is going on and runs everything okay. And from this moment, you think, I can stand doing the same thing every day, working for a project, or working alone at home by my own, or seeking out new contacts, new companies, new projects every day, alone at home, doing the same thing, the thing you love. That I love drawing all the day, and I love painting all the day, but probably you became someone alone at home doing every day the same. So you need to travel, you need to find something, new input, to make a turn and to restore your brain. So that happens to me. And by the same time, I restart my career with a new project. I realized that this could probably be something very usual, no? And you have periods in your life that could be more hard as an illustrator, but anyway, at the end of the day, you reach your goals and you find the way to success, and it balances the hardest days in your
And
I don't know.
I guess for you as well, Vicky, like, you know, you juggling work life, sort of moving over to fashion illustration as a sort of, how does it become an extra piece of your life at night to your full-time experience? How are you finding that experience? Because a lot of illustrators do have 10 hats. You know, you're a Like I was talking to Tracy Turnbull was messaging me, and she's like, I'm doing creative direction and I'm so stressed out and I'm doing this, and she's probably in there somewhere, and she'll be laughing. But this was something that she was mentioning to me, and I feel the same, doing the book and doing this and trying to do commercial jobs. Like, how are you finding that experience of like balancing all these balls of life?
That's a really good question. I think because I'm quite good at my time management, I think that really does help in terms of setting apart, say, the UX work that I do to the illustration work that comes in. But that said, as you just mentioned, even with just doing the illustration, say, stuff in the evening, it's not just drawing, and that's actually probably a percentage of the job. It's actually, there's all the social that goes behind it. There's the PR, there is creative direction, there is the communications, being a PA, there is all of those other extra bits that we don't talk about. And actually, I learned that a long time ago. Before I was in the job I am now, full time, I was a freelancer in the same industry, but I learned a lot from being a freelancer. And I think people forget that just being the creative isn't actually the only job when you're a freelancer. You're actually more than just that. You have to embody all of those things. And I think as I've gone through different jobs with UX, I've learned a lot, say, from industry side that's like transferable into the illustration side. For instance, just negotiating contracts, to setting time expectations, to just also knowing your worth as well. The UX industry is very well put together in terms of your bands, your experience level, pay, all of those. So you kind of know where you're at. You also know kind of how long things take. And I think people understand you set those boundaries. And I think I've applied a lot of that to my illustration as well. I've been able to, when I get a contract in, before I even start anything, before I pick up a pen or a paintbrush, that all of that stuff's negotiated beforehand. Sorry, I've got cats in the background. And I think that's really helped me balance the two. I'm able to come at it from a business mindset, not just a creative.
Yeah, and I know what I heard from Jill there was quite clever, and she pointed out is she contacted the company and said, how do you become someone who's on the front cover, almost being the agent, the artist, the entrepreneur. Do you think that's quite important as surviving as an illustrator, is to have that sort of, if you sit around drawing in your room, you will just disappear, where, this sort of having the courage to just contact someone. What I don't know, what's your thoughts on that? Because you pointed out something that was quite important earlier.
Yeah, I envy Vicky, because she obviously naturally is a businesswoman and creative at the same time, which is just the perfect combination, isn't it? I like to think I have a good work ethic. I'm very reliable. I am good at meeting deadlines. I like to think I'm approachable and, fun to work with and professional. But that's the hardest part for me. That is the hardest part, is knowing where to look for contacts and connections, and then having the confidence to actually go ahead and say, hey, what about it? So yeah, that is a big thing. I suspect it's similar for lots of creatives, because it is easy, like you've just said, Patrick, to sit and think, well, that's difficult, so I'm going to draw today because I like drawing and painting, and and it feels good. I do have a tendency to do that as well, so I've got to try and really focus on not just getting buried inside the creative element, even though that's essentially the fundamental part of what makes it a thing. Yeah.
I guess I'm just seeing some questions here. One was for Francesco. What's your type of favorite commission, editorial pieces or live fashion shows?
Oh, I wouldn't say I have like something favorite. I think it's different every time, actually, and I really try to put the same effort to each single job I receive. It's sort of like the live stuff is quite exciting, but it's also quite stressing because you really need to produce the work within minutes. So it's quite nice, but also quite stressing. I do miss that, of course, right now because of the pandemic. But I also appreciate when I have the time to work on a project from my home studio with my time. So I wouldn't say I have like a favorite one. It's just quite the same, let's say.
And I've just seen a question on here, which I guess surviving as an illustrator is having an agent. And I know this topic comes up quite a lot, and I can see the agent names in there. I'm not going to mention them, but I guess they've said a manager. So Marcia Gomez, one of your questions was, is it important to have a manager as an illustrator? I don't know if anybody's got a manager. If I had a manager, I'd sack him. But I know having an agent is the best and the worst thing that you can have, because from my experience, and hopefully my agent, I've been with my agent for 20 years since I left university, and you know, he's got me work for Selfridges. I've worked on big commissions. I've flown all over the world doing work, and it's been a great experience. And he's always kind of sort of worked alongside me and sort of celebrated what I've done. But when I go crazy and I want to push what I do, he'll almost want to slap you around the face and say, well, that's not going to work, or that he's kind of guiding you with what he thinks he can sell. And I think as a creative, which I had said earlier, is that you need to keep shaping yourself. You know, Picasso had Cubism to Impressionism to, you know, he moved all the time. And as an artist, we do. And I think to all you agents out there is having the agile minds that move with your creative. And I know it's so difficult because we are, you know, illustrators can be quite difficult to work with, and we can be quite quiet, or we can, you know, when I see all these different illustrators, you know, there's quiet ones, there's loud ones, there's business minded ones. You'll get a whole mix of illustrators that you get to know. And I guess today there's us five as just a little group of people who is talking about being a freelancer, being a commercial artist, and we all have different experiences. So I wouldn't want to call him a manager, but I think an agent is kind of a bit like a facilitator, and hopefully someone who gives you a hug when everything goes bad or goes wrong, and says, okay, come on, keep going. It depends on the size of the agency as well, because if there's an agency and they've got 200, 300 artists, you're a small pea in a big pod. So I don't know, because they were asking who's got a manager, who else has got an agent? I know, Francesco, you're with Lipstick, is that correct?
Yeah, I do Lipstick London, yeah, Marie Claire.
And in case they're on here, is like, how's your experience been with having an agent?
So it's been only 1 year. I'm with Marie Claire from Lipstick London. So also like last year has been quite weird for everyone. So like before that, I've been working with an agent, and I've been working fine, of course. So far, like my first year with Marie Claire I'm very, very happy. It's true, like when you say sometimes you just need a hug, and yeah, that's true. And in a way, I feel like before having an agent, I felt quite lonely, maybe in my work, and I think like it's kind of the same for many freelancers and illustrators. Like you are all by yourself the whole day. So I mean, I feel like right now having an agent, I don't feel alone. I feel like I'm a part of a team, possibly, and so like she's having my back, like in any time, in any kind of work. And of course, she's far more experienced than me in the commercial aspects of the job. So far, I'm very happy. But I mean, I know illustrators that don't have an agent and they are quite successful, and vice versa. So I think, yeah, it's quite personal also.
And is anyone else, Jill? Who are you represented?
No, I'm not. But
No.
I'm not. But I wanted to make a point that when I first started, I thought that was the, you know, the ambrosia, you know, the sort of the all sort of all seeing all, because of the sort of lack of not lack of confidence, but perhaps lack of resources, and you know, the thing about approaching people and where to look. I thought that having an agent was the be all and end all. And I did apply to a lot of agencies and had a couple of very, very close shaves being represented. But the thing that I don't know if everyone realizes, and whether it's just me, but I have been given work by agents without being signed by them. So they've come to me occasionally and said, Jill, can you do this project? And I've done it. So I just thought that was an interesting point to make, that, you know, it can be useful to have a good relationship with an agent, even if they haven't got you on the books.
I never knew that existed. That's a new one for me.
Yeah.
Sorry, Pat, I didn't mean to intrude. I was actually thinking that's a really interesting point, because I've worked quite closely with some PR companies in that respect, but I've not had the pleasure of working with an agent. I think I've spoke to you about that. But I definitely see the benefits from what you've said and what other people talked about. But I think, yeah, I'm not sure if it's a kind of a 50-50 for me. I kind of am used to doing stuff myself in terms of, well, people come to me and then I will negotiate a contract. So that part I'm not afraid of, but I definitely see the benefits from what you've talked about, where they kind of do the legwork and find you the contract, and go from there. I think there's probably a 50-50. I think it really is about personality as well. And if that's the case, Jill, I've not had that experience, but kind of similar with PR companies.
And Montserrat, how about yourself as well? If we can hear you.
I consider that agents that,
If
you
we
can hear me?
you, I was
Oh
just
no.
good.
Oh, again.
Now
So I consider that it is really necessary to have an agent, but at the beginning you don't know who or how is going to be your agent or your PR manager. And I felt, from my point of view, I think that you have to work 1 year or 2 years, and then later choose the ones are going to represent you. I feel like this. I prefer now, for example, with you, Patrick and Fida. I feel that we switch. The projects are gonna be in the same line. You feel the things like I feel the things. You breathe the same. You breathe alike. No?
Yeah.
But at the beginning, a lot of people ask me to represent me, and I answer no, because I don't like how they feel, how they are, or I don't like the people who ask me to represent or to join and manage.
Good. And then, so let's just have a look. I've got a few more little questions, which was, let's find a good one. So one of the things is, what would you all like to see change in the fashion illustration field in general? Is there certain things that you've seen over your experience of being a fashion, like I spoke about the word illustrator, but how you're dealt with as an illustrator, how agents deal with you as a fashion illustrator? Is there any things that you think, like I just saw on there about pricing? I saw Nadia as well talking about pricing, and the Association of Illustration is great about setting out these sort of price points. But all I can tell you is pricing is the most cryptic experience. You could invent prices, because I constantly ask my agent, how did that price happen? And I can never, and we have discussions with the AOI, we have discussions with so many people, and everybody comes back with a different price. So I think with regards to pricing as an artist or as an illustrator, is one of the things that I thought about was, if you're an illustrator, like I've been approached by Dazed and Confused, for example, and they say, could you do 10 illustrations for us? And you're going to go out and do, it was for Frieze Art Fair, £20. So all the agents hopefully are laughing in the background of this one, but this is Dazed and Confused, a sort of contemporary magazine, which is supposed to be celebrating being an artist, also celebrating being an illustrator, and another magazine as well, £20. How, you might as well give me free subscription for the year or something different. But to say £20 is almost like, what, say if you pay tax on that, you're gonna, you know, you're always thinking about all these things. What's the point? And even if it's an online piece, there should be some sort of reference point of fees. So even when people offer you £150 to do an illustration, if you put it into hours, man hours, and you're spending a day, and then they give you feedback, and then you spend another day, and then there's more feedback, you're now breaking it up into money, like surviving. How do you survive as an illustrator? If you spend 1 week doing an illustration for £100, that's £20 a day, and it's just not affordable. And one of the things I was saying that maybe illustrators should think about is that they have a day rate, and that day rate is the set price for anyone to be. So anyone who wants to commission someone, you're an illustrator, you've worked for X amount of time, and a day rate for anybody as a freelancer would be £200 or £250. And if you want something done quickly, it doesn't matter. And if it breaks into days, there's a minimum fee for all illustrators. And then there's a sort of code of practice. Otherwise, you may as well give up and go and work in Costa Coffee for £5 to £7 an hour and be paid more. And I had illustrators who wouldn't go and work on Star Wars as an illustrator for £350 a day because they were scared that they'd lose their job in Starbucks. And that's the feedback I got from illustrators. They're so scared that they can't give up their main job because of the lack of appreciation and understanding for what they do. So I don't know, these are my ideas, but what about you guys? And I'm mindful of time. I wanted to keep on the time. So we've got, it says 4 minutes. We can go a little bit over. I know everybody's got busy lives and we've all done thousands of Zoom hours. So if anyone who's, you know, I guess Montserrat, what's your thoughts on changing the system of fashion illustration, commissioning, being able to survive financially?
Being able to survive financially. First thing, to respect the hours of work of the illustrators. And I think that one idea could be to share more, to create a community a bigger community, and share the work and make more events and live paintings and work together and make it real, make it public. And perhaps if we make the illustration like a market or like a very big event, the people will know more about the time you apply for doing illustration, and the people will know more about the difficulty of being an illustrator. So I think we have to be more visible, no? And we make more noise, and be there.
Good. And Jill, I can see your hand up.
Well, I was just to reiterate that point that, you know, the more we share videos and processes on social media, this is happening a lot more. We've got more outlets to be able to do that. The more the world should be able to see what goes into an illustration and into a piece of art, because I think it's ignorance a lot of the time. And I think it goes across all creative industries, because I've worked in fashion design, I've worked in graphic design, and now illustration, and you know, there's always an undercutting element. There's always an ignorance from a client point of view a lot of the time about what goes into it, and then the others. So making people more aware by what we're doing now and trying to create a movement where people are more aware of it. What you're doing, Patrick, is fantastic. But also, I think we have a responsibility as illustrators ourselves not to do free work and not to do cheap work, because as soon as you do that, you lessen, you degrade it for everyone else. You lessen the quality that's understood from other people.
But if you're a student trying to get into the system, so there'll be students on here as well, and they're trying to get their voice out there, and they're like, well, I live at my mum and dad's, I have no rent, and I want to get in ID or Dazed or The Face or get commercial work, and they'll be willing to work for free. Do you think maybe the universities potentially should say, you know, there needs, you are only ruining it for yourself by being free? And I guess what's happened, which is quite nice, is with Instagram now, you can PR yourself without having to do free work. So hopefully a lot of young people are getting recognition now. All the barriers, I think, have gone down, and it's enabling people to just be creative. And, you know, it is a kind of like a big tussling match on Instagram of people posting endlessly, lots of images going up there and just getting recognized. And I think it's a great time to be a young creative.
I totally agree, and it's the same even for an older creative such as myself. Because it's a great platform for people to be able to share and for people to be able to show what they can do, without having to do work for nothing or for very little. And it also backfires as well. I was approached by a very, very big American brand, designer brand, because they'd seen something on Instagram and wanted to use it for some packaging for jewelry. So I was very flattered and said, oh yeah, what, you know. So we started talking, but they wanted to pay me in dresses. They wanted to pay me with beautiful couture dresses, which was, you know, fantastic. Most of my sort of, you know, girlfriends said, wow, brilliant. I said, that's not, you know, that's not what we're doing. You know, we need to pay the bills. So there are certain situations where, yes, there might be arrangements that just suited on that day, or maybe you kind of, but generally, I think generally there has to be an understanding that we have to keep the level high for each other. If we're trying to work as a team and be a creative community, then we need the world to understand that there is value there. And I saw sorry, Patrick, am I going on too long? There was a Picasso quote the other day I saw, which was that he'd done an illustration, a piece of art, a portrait of a woman. I forget who the woman was, and she had a meeting with him. He did a line, which took 2 minutes, and when he asked her for thousands of pounds, she said, "But dear, it only took you a couple of minutes." He said, "My dear, it took me a lifetime." So that's the thing. You've got to see the value of how we get to where we are rather than the time it took to do it.
It's the journey, and I'm seeing some nice. I can see Victoria in here, who I met at the first Fida Awards, and she was saying that we should become more like tradespeople, which my family have come from building background. So being a tradesperson, I guess that it gets you to understand about how much you're worth an hour. But we all know in the beginning, you are trying to crack a field that is very difficult, and fashion has got a very bad reputation with regards to paying. They love paying you with gifts, chocolates, perfume. And as we all know, that doesn't pay for, you end up moving over to doing work for pharmaceutical companies and things like this, which have no heart to them. They pay because they've got billions. But fashion houses, I guess fashion's the hardest market, we all know, that is to crack. And I guess it's only because you're passionate about the field that really you're allowing these sort of bad things to happen with regards to no payment, low payment, and things like that. So, and I remember I spoke to Victoria, and I can see her in the field somewhere, but and she's waving to me. But with regards to one of my main things of doing this, and and I spoke to Victoria right at the beginning, is really to set this cornerstone, that pricing, and how do we make fashion art, fashion illustration a much more respected, like photographers. I don't know the difference. If someone could just please tell me why a photographer should be paid so much more, but I think it's the production. The only thing I can think of is production, is that they have 1,000 helpers, lighting team. And I spoke to Nuno da Costa recently about agents and life and various other things. And one of the things I'd spoken to him about is having more courage and becoming like Antonio Lopez and having a team and saying, okay, if you want to commission me, you need to have, well, I've got a team. I have makeup artists. I bring in the model. We need to take back control of our practice. And I think that's what we have to change, the whole mindset. And even David Downton, I spoke to him just before Christmas, and he did a cover for Vogue, and it was of I can't remember her name, but it won an award for one of the best covers for Vogue. Someone else can maybe tell me. It was Kate Blanchett, I think, was the front cover. And he said he had Pat McGrath was doing the makeup. He had a huge team, and then he had to get rid of them all because he didn't need them. So he was like, well, I just want to draw. So he said, we just had all this team of people flying in. She was flying from Australia, and we were at the Dorchester Hotel. That is the only way you could command. And he was saying that a lot of photographers are like divas, that they will go, well, I'll book my own flight. You need to do this. You need to cart me around here. Maybe fashion illustrators, because we're so agile and we get on with stuff, maybe we're making it bad for us, that we're so accommodating. We'll book our tickets. We'll do this. Yeah, we'll work for this. We'll do that. Maybe we need to become more diva. And maybe that's the final outcome, is as illustrators, we become more divas and take no crap, and people to carry our bags and become more like Beyonce or someone like that. And I think that maybe has to become the philosophy. It seems crazy, but it's what people need to feel that you could command the fee. And I don't know, and it might not feel nice, but it's a way of changing the mindset of the commissioner.
I think, Patrick, just to add to that, I think I hate using the word diva personally, but I think it's just that assertiveness. I think it's just knowing exactly, like you said, what you're worth earlier, to just knowing exactly what you want and need to do the project, say, that's being asked of you. And I think if you're going to get somebody to come in or approach you, you kind of set down, go, well, these are the timelines that I would be working to. This is what I want to do in terms of milestones. And also it's a negotiation, but I think it is that assertiveness that actually gives you the credit, and actually then if that client or that brand is with you. And I think that kind of goes hand in hand with just, again, knowing your worth. I think that's something that I've said before, taken from working in UX, is just having that courage to communicate exactly what it is that you need in order to do your job, and have a negotiation, set expectations.
I've seen some more comments. It's good. We're getting nice and gritty on that comments now, which is quite good to see. So I did say I wanted to keep it to the hour, so we've gone over a little bit, which is not too bad. Firstly, I'd just like to thank all of our panel. We've got another talk coming up the 11th of February. If you look online, hopefully all the members and everybody have been able to log in. This was our first experience, our sort of, it reminds me of the awards, things going right, things going wrong. It hasn't been too bad. We haven't had a power cut, the microphone didn't work or whatever. So our first Fida Awards was an interesting experience, but you know, we're learning, and I guess as a collective, this is an experience. But hopefully everybody on here that I can see all the names is, hopefully this is a good space for sharing. And you know, the goal is to really get our voices out there, and this sort of community gathering of sort of minds. And I've got some ideas. If anyone's got any ideas of talks that they would like to, they would like us to cover, because I know one might be, I would like the voices of the agents to say something. So seeing Victoria and various people here, is the voices of an agent, what they think and how they, I guess, get an illustrator to be taken on, or how they find illustrators. And it could be a good space for all of us. So I'm just going to let Marcus in, because I just saw Draw a Dot guy coming in. He's very late, fashionably late, with 1 minute to go. So we could say welcome to Marcus from Draw a Dot. But I don't know if any of you guys have got anything to say, but you know, thank you. You can hear sort of, if everyone raises their hands and gives us a little clap to our audience. This is our virtual sort of clapping experience. But it was, you know, and thanks to all of you who've joined us tonight. Hopefully we didn't bore the hell out of you. It hasn't been too bad of a discussion. It feels still surreal. And once we can start meeting each other again, hopefully we can do this live and meet each other and have a hug and have a glass of wine or whatever we need to have, and you know, and get back to that system. But we will keep this dialogue open as much as possible, and it's great because we've got people all over the world joining this conversation, so we want to keep this open and inclusive as much as possible. But like I said, please feel free to email, send us, go to fidaworldwide.com and have a look. We've got our new book out. I'm not going to PR it too much because I feel like Jonathan Ross. So yes, feel free to email, send us some contacts, and thanks to our panel. And I'll see you in February the 11th, same time, 7 till 8 UK. So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
And